Good morning from Fast Company. Here's our daily look into what's driving today's creative business leaders. Your performance at work today has a lot to do with how you spend your time after work yesterday. It's not just about putting down the devices at a decent hour and having a consistent bedtime routine. New research suggests we can take steps to optimize tomorrow's performance as soon as work ends today. According to the study, mentally detaching from work earlier in the day and not thinking about it for the rest of the evening leads to more energy, less fatigue, and higher work goal accomplishment the following day. It's critical that you start your recovery as soon as you can, says lead author Ryan Grant, an assistant professor of psychological science at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Grant and his co-researchers asked more than 300 participants to log their activity every hour for 5 hours each evening, as well as record how they felt and what they accomplished the next day. They also identified factors that made it harder to leave work behind, which pushed the start of that mental recovery later into the evening and ultimately left workers feeling more depleted the next day. On days when workload is higher, people are about 79% more likely to delay their recovery later in the evening, he says. On days when people felt more accomplished at work, they were about 56% more likely to recover earlier in the evening. How to detach quickly, even when working remotely. The findings suggest that in-office workers may enjoy a slight performance advantage, as mentally detaching from work is a lot easier with physical distance. That is why Grant says remote workers need to put a little more effort into creating space between their workspace and their living space, even if it's more mental than physical. Grant recommends shutting down the laptop or monitor, going for a walk, even changing into more casual attire to signal that it's time to stop thinking about work. The study also found that those who leave work with a sense of accomplishment tend to recover faster and, ultimately, show up to work more energized the following day. Using your evenings to gain an edge. The performance boost experienced by those who detach from work earlier is what Grant would describe as statistically significant, but it may not feel that way immediately. These small differences add up, he says. Your performance is going to be a lot more sustainable. Workers may also want to put extra effort into detaching even earlier the night before a big meeting, presentation, or high-pressure situation, says John Trougakos, a University of Toronto professor of organizational behavior and HR management. Tempting as it may be to go over your notes and prepare late into the evening, the research suggests you're likely to perform better by stepping away and letting yourself recover. That is, unless it's the night before and you're totally unprepared, Trougakos adds. The case for leaving staff alone after hours. The data also brings up a compelling argument for employers looking to maximize employee productivity. They'll be more successful with a more hands-off approach. Some managers and leaders see no harm in messaging staff after hours, but Trougakos warns those who feel like they're on call at night will perform worse in the long run. The biggest thing is getting over the short-term mentality of, I need this now, and having a more holistic big-picture perspective, he says. Trougakos explains that, thanks to remote work tools, many feel tethered to work. He adds that organizations and leaders can reduce the probability of that tether becoming an anchor on their recovery, which translates into an anchor on their productivity the next day. Trougakos adds that after-hours requests can also be indicative of a demanding work culture, which research suggests produces worse outcomes for businesses in the long run. Is government intervention necessary? Despite the growing body of research to suggest that enforcing simple work-life boundaries offers benefits to both individuals and their organizations, many employers continue to encroach on staff's personal time. In response, 25 countries have adopted laws that make it illegal for employers to communicate with staff after hours. According to a recent study, organizations in places that introduce these right-to-disconnect laws see increases in employee satisfaction, productivity, and profitability. The researchers found that businesses see a 5.7% average increase in return on assets, or ROA, and a 6.1% average increase in earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, EBITDA, after their jurisdiction enforces a right to disconnect law. The researchers also found that overall employee satisfaction scores on employer review site Glassdoor significantly improved among Ontario-based employers after the Canadian province's right to disconnect law went into effect in 2021. There are similar state-level proposals in California, New Jersey, and New York. But Mark Ma, one of the study's co-authors and an associate professor of business administration at the University of Pittsburgh, says those efforts have stalled in the face of layoffs and rising unemployment. There are some big companies that are adopting their own policies, but not many, because not all managers' decisions are based on scientific research and evidence, he says. There's no doubt that if you're better rested, you can work better the next day. That's all today from Fast Company. Talk to you tomorrow.
SpokenLayer.